Morning, everyone. I'm here representing the industry industry advocate role for Pillar 4. My co-advocate Eileen's also here. Morning, and I'm here with Alan as well. So we're going to just talk you briefly through where we're at with the pillar so far. So context and motivation. This is a big topic. It's a big apple to bite. It's a big thing to deal with, even in a 5-year period, and we have to stay focused on achieving certain things within that. So, whilst we're always trying to look at what's available out there to make things better or improve things, we'll also be trying to keep ourselves focused just due to the sheer scale of what we're trying to achieve here. So I suppose the first thing we're going to look at is digitization and standardization of procurement processes. There's an awful lot of waste in procurement, and intellectual waste and person waste, and it's something that we need to kind of sort out. It's just there's no need for it anymore in the modern world. It can be done better, more efficiently. We need to ensure that we represent the needs of the industry. Very, very important. We're very lucky with the group we have. We have some very, very smart, elite people on our team, all volunteering their time willingly and with gusto, and we really do appreciate that. We're very, very lucky. We want to identify digital procurement best practice. So, while we're standardizing, we also want to make sure we're doing it in the best manner that we can, digitally speaking. We wish to provide tools and resources for digital procurement. So, it's not just for the big boys, it's for the small guys, the middle guys, it's for everybody. There has to be a set of tools and resources that we can all use and we can all standardize for the industry. That's what we're working towards. We also want to reduce resource waste associated with digital procurement. So, double jobbing, as I mentioned already, people waste, intellectual waste, and there's lots of ways we're planning on achieving that. Moving on to this here, this is an infographic that Alan has been working very hard on with some of the pillar members, it really summarizes our plan of attack for the next few years. So you can see there in the center, we have digital procurement, which is basically about supporting successful project outcomes through digital. And we have people, processes, and technology there. And then we have a green, digital, and lean thread running through all of the various parts of the project, of the life cycle of a project. So at the start, we have client briefing. We have the sustainability piece, maturity. We've EU building digital logbook and circularity, a major part of what we're planning on doing. Pre-project stage, we're talking about collaborative procurement and contract vehicles. Do we have the right contracts to facilitate digital procurement? Is that in the contracts? Can we do anything about that, or can we advocate for that? ECI and FM and BIM lifecycle. So looking at BIM, very, very important to adopt a digital strategy from the very, very start and incorporate it into the overall life of the project. And one of the major findings earlier was that we were getting feedback that clients aren't mandating digital in our industry. That's a big problem, certainly in my area where I work. I'm in bid management with a large contractor calling construction. And if the client doesn't ask for it, we don't do it. We have certain pieces that we do ourselves, of course, our 4D piece, our sometimes 5D. But if the client doesn't want the deliverable, we won't price that into the job, and that's a big obstacle. Planning and design stage. Low carbon and modern methods of construction, ESG assessment continues, and IM framework, ICMS continues. Contractor selection, where I spend most of my time. Common assessment standards, digital billing and analysis, ESG and BIM maturity. So can we really make it transparent? Can we make sure that we're all getting measured against the same yardstick when we're being assessed for a tender? There's still a people factor, but we can certainly make it a little bit more clear, I think, and make it more efficient for sure. Project mobilization, so project data sheet standardization, GTIN, EPD and ESG, BIM templates and protocols. So again, you see a thread of BIM standards and consistency all the way through these various parts. E-procurement, ESG compliance, LOC and FM in the construction stage, and then in the project closeout stage and operation stage, BIM and computer-aided facility management, digital twins, carbon monitoring. Going back to construction, are we specifying the right materials to really deliver our sustainability goals? Are we making the right decisions based on cost, based on life cycle, so on, okay? I suppose just to give you an overview of where we're at, and then I'll hand you over to Alan. Really, we're looking at years 1 to 5. Irish BIM framework published, feedback via workshops and pilot tested via living labs and endorsed by key stakeholders from the client and industry cohorts. Now, I'll put the call out to all of you, please get involved. We need more help. We need more industry advocates, we need living labs, we need case studies. So please approach Alan, me, anybody on the pillar to get involved. We need more. We want the industry to own this. Case studies, public in the national and international digital innovation in procurement and digital supply chains, best practice case studies. That's a 5-year thing as well, as was the last one. Maturity study, again, a 5-year plan. Irish construction, small, medium enterprise, digital maturity in DIP and DSC determined, published and monitored. Toolkit, digital construction, product supply chain toolkit, developed and piloted in collaboration with merchants, suppliers and large corporate procurers. That's to be delivered by year 3. And then the living labs, which will happen from years 2 to 5, case studies in the use of innovative procurement practice.
Thanks very much, Stephen.
Cheers.
Good morning, everyone. So what have we been doing over the last while? Well, the first thing to say is that we're absolutely delighted with the level of engagement and activity that's going on with our 7 industry members. But just like Stephen said, I wanted to call out, if you're here today online in the room and you represent a professional institution or organization, if you're a client, public, private, if you're a construction professional, if you're a contractor, a supplier, a manufacturer, and you have a remit for procurement, in particularly how we can improve the efficiency of the information that we exchange, please contact us, because there's a huge amount of work to do in this pillar. We're also very fortunate, I know it's taken a while, we've been very fortunate in getting our innovators in position. So we have a contribution from our full-time postdoctoral researcher from TU Dublin. We have a full-time PhD researcher, Wahid, at the back of the room, and we also have a part-time MPhil researcher. But we're hoping to attract other innovators and researchers into this project through our student network in all the colleges on this project as we move forward. We have produced a pillar life cycle. I know other pillars perhaps are using a different framework, but it's the life cycle approach that we're taking on this. We are producing a report. Now, this report will be somewhat different. It's going to be very business-like. It's going to be outward focused, not in Ireland. So looking internationally at other frameworks and what we can learn in Ireland in our adoption. A lot has been said about information and BIM frameworks this morning, and we want to follow through on that. But it's a journey that we're going to have to take over the next number of years. We've been selecting case studies, and we're listening to industry, and they're telling us, could you look at, for example, common assessment standards, which is an online or it's a digital accreditation system for pre-qual. That could be something of real value to clients, public and private. And we're also working very hard on our maturity study. So just like what was said earlier, particularly with Ted earlier, we're focusing on particular jurisdictions that were referred to in the KPMG TU Dublin FAC report, but in particular the UK, Scandinavia and Australasia. We have over 240 publications, we've got 60 folders, we've got 10 authors, we've done 6 international interviews, we've interviewed Scottish Future Trust, we've got interviews with Senetti of Finland next week. These are the people who actually wrote the guidelines for these countries. And we'll be looking at other jurisdictions that were mentioned by Ted earlier today. We're working very closely with Barry and his team on Pillar 2. We intend to work very closely with Pillar 1, particularly all of the information we've gathered. There's a lot of digital transformation programs in these countries I'd like to share with Ted and his team in Pillar 1. And we have these chapters in draft form. So we're gathering government publications, peer-reviewed journals, and most importantly, personal interviews, because that personal interview piece is so important when we're talking to people directly. Now, when it comes to information management reports internationally, what we've got to accept is that the international framework is already in place. So in other words, we have the ISO framework that Barry was talking to and many other standards. So we have a standing start. But what we need to try and do is develop a national framework on top of that and trade-related use frameworks. For example, it was mentioned earlier about the RAI BIM Pack. What a fantastic piece of work. But perhaps what we need to do is extend that into other professional guidelines as well for surveyors and engineers and so on and so forth. There's significant resources available from Scottish Future Trust, for example. It was mentioned, we interviewed the guys a few weeks ago, the UK BIM framework and so forth. Lots of news coming from the UK, but lots of momentum from the UK from the point of view of an international information or a national information management framework. They have multi-party BIM protocols. They have their transformational infrastructure program in the UK, and the recent announcement of the UK BIM Alliance now being rebadged as NEMA, and taking the technical piece out of BIM, because SMEs find it difficult to identify with all the acronyms and the technicality of BIM. So we need to try and look at that. The Nordics, they have frameworks predominantly. They have regulatory BIM, and we're learning a lot from that. We have national information frameworks in all these countries. Australia and New Zealand have a joint framework, a joint guidelines. But overall, if I just fast forward to the conclusion of this report, we need a national coordinating body in this country driving BIM. And also because I think it's stalled a lot in recent years. So we're calling for Ireland to take a coordinated approach to this. And that's obviously where Build Digital can play a key role. So just to finish on the next steps, we're going to be very busy over the next 4 to 6 weeks with finishing this review, collecting case studies from these different countries that we talked about, incorporating them into the report. We will need the feedback of the project executive. We will need the feedback of CSG. And we're probably going to need, or we will need, a sponsor to produce this report as well. Case studies, we're going to continue to collect case studies both nationally and internationally. I've been visiting various companies over the last few months. I was at SIG Ireland last week. Unbelievable technology being used by these companies. So we need to sort of collate that. And I suppose celebrate the expert use of digital that's going on in this country. We have a maturity study to do. We have a baseline to develop. Toolkits and living labs will come in later years, particularly next year and in 24 as we start to gather. Now the diagram on the right, I'll finish with this. I just put this down as my thoughts, the win-win that Build Digital will bring. As educators, as researchers, we provide the rigor in regard to research. That information we would want to see applied in practice, but practice and industry will constantly make sure we're being relevant. So the information that we have in our Exchange Hub is of relevance. And of course, the win for us as researchers is that we get more knowledge. Our students become PhD graduates, our students get masters, and our graduates and undergraduates can get involved as well. So I very much see this, the reports, the case studies, the living labs, there's a purpose to this. And this is this relationship between higher education and industry, so important. It was talked about earlier on. So that brings us to a conclusion, just to say that one of our deliverables is to start to have a conversation about what a BIM or information management framework might look like in Ireland. So we're going to have this workshop later this morning. So thank you so much. Thank you.